Hi, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be giving you an introduction to cutouts and briefly go over how to make them. I'd like to emphasize that making cutouts is a very important skill that you should master. Make sure to put the effort in learning what's to come. Alright, so a cutout is when you take a photo and you isolate a specific part of that photo. We'll be learning how to make cutouts by making something called a layer mask. A layer mask is an editable way to show or hide parts of a layer without permanently deleting anything. This way, you can isolate a specific part of a layer for a cutout, like this person, while still having your original layer's image data to show or remove. To make a cutout through a layer mask, you have to make a selection of what you want to isolate, and then with that layer selected, click on Add Layer Mask in the lower right here. You'll notice that whatever you had selected is the only part of your layer still visible. So if I were to hold Control and click on the layer mask icon, you would see that this person is the only thing that's still visible from my original layer. Everything that was outside the selection is now masked away or hidden. If you want to adjust your layer mask, you can click on the black and white layer mask thumbnail here, and then paint with either black to mask something or white to unmask something from the original layer. So with my layer mask selected and with white as my foreground color, I'll brush over the layer mask to reveal certain parts of that layer. With black as my foreground color, and I switch by pressing X on my keyboard, you can brush over the layer to mask away parts of your layer. If you press Alt or Option on the Mac and click on the layer mask thumbnail, you can see the areas you have masked and unmasked. To see your original layer again, just click back on your original layer thumbnail. If you want to see how your layer looks like without your layer mask, you can hold Shift and click on the layer mask thumbnail. This disables the layer mask. To enable it again, just click back on the layer mask thumbnail. Here's a little pro tip. If you want to mask or unmask specific areas, you can make a selection of that area, then fill that selection with either black or white. So for example, if I disable my layer mask and feel that I want to reveal this hurdle right here, which is partially hidden in my layer mask, I could make a selection of that hurdle, then fill that selection with white to unmask the hurdle. So I'll just disable the layer mask to see the hurdle again, and then with the polygonal lasso tool, I'll make a selection around the hurdle. So with my selection made, I'll just click back on the layer mask thumbnail and then fill the selection with white. To fill an area with your foreground color, which is white, press Alt Delete or Option Delete on a Mac. You'll see that whatever I had selected is now filled with white. So back to a point I made before. Selections are a key part in making layer masks, so you should know how to make selections. With that said, I'll be going over the 4 main categories of selection tools. Those are the Marquee Tools, the Lasso Tools, the Fast Selection Tools, and the Pen Tools. Starting off, we have the Marquee Tools, which are used to make geometric selections like rectangular, square, elliptical, or circular selections. They're best for selecting rectangular or round things like faces and photo frames, or for easily unmasking your background. Here we have the rectangular marquee tool. You click and drag to make rectangular selections and also symmetrical square selections, and you can do that by holding Shift as you drag your cursor. To deselect, press Ctrl D or Command D on the Mac. With the elliptical marquee tool, you can make elliptical selections and also symmetrical circular selections, and that's by holding Shift while dragging. Don't worry about the other 2 marquee tools, we won't ever use them. So anyways, here's a little pro tip. To move your unplaced selection around, make a selection, but leave your mouse on the left click. Then hold space and drag your cursor. This is really helpful if you want to move, then change and place your selection. It's more convenient than making a selection, moving it, seeing if you even like it or not, deselecting it, and then making a new selection and repeating the whole cycle again. Also, you can add onto or remove from your selection. So to add onto your selection, hold Shift and outline a new area. You'll see that the rectangle I made joined with the other rectangle I made before. To remove from your selection, hold Alt or Option and outline a new area. You'll notice that the rectangle I dragged deleted from the selection I had before. These hotkeys will apply to the other selection tools too. Hold Shift to add onto a selection and Alt or Option to remove from a selection. To demonstrate these features, if you had a photo like this and you wanted to isolate these rectangular photo frames, you can do one of two things. The first thing you can do is make a selection for all these individual photo frames. So make a selection with the rectangular marquee tool, then hold Shift and make selections for the next photo frames. So with all these selections made, I'll click on the layer that has these photo frames and then click Add Layer Mask in the lower right corner here. Now all these photo frames are isolated. The other thing I could have done is to make a selection around all these photo frames and then remove the space in between. So with my layer selected, I'll make a big selection and then hold Alt and outline the areas in between. I'm also going to use the spacebar to move my selection around. So with all my selections done, I'll select my layer and then click Add Layer Mask, and these layers are now isolated. Moving on, we have the Lasso Tools, which are fast freehand ways to make selections. And by freehand, I mean you draw a selection with your mouse. They're best used for making rough, quick cutouts, or for easily making specific spots to mask or unmask. Here we have the normal lasso tool. You click and drag your cursor to make an outline that then makes a selection. And then you can turn this selection into a layer mask. So click on your layer and then click Add Layer Mask. This is a very quick way to make selections, but obviously not crisp or clean selections because you freehanded it with your jittery human hands. This tool is best reserved for making fast cutout mockups. Here we have the polygonal lasso tool. You click to place these lines that then connect to form a selection. And then you can turn a selection into a layer mask. Like that. This tool is good for making selections of straight or slanted things, like a hurdle, or a wall. Here we have the magnetic lasso tool. With a layer selected, you can draw an outline along some subject, and the magnetic lasso tool will try to clip the outline along what it thinks is the subject. And this is based on color. The more contrast your subject has from the background, the better the magnetic lasso tool will clip its outline. So you see here as I'm moving my cursor along this guy, the outline is clipping along to him. So here we have a finished selection, and you can turn that selection into a layer mask. So have your layer selected and click Add Layer Mask. This tool is good for making quick, somewhat accurate cutouts. Moving on again, we have the fast selection tools, which use Photoshop's color-based algorithm to make fast selections. They're best used for making rough, quick cutouts, or for easily making selections of simple colored things. Here we have the object selection tool. With a layer selected, you outline the general area some subject is in, and then Photoshop will try to select what it thinks is the subject. There's two selection modes, lasso and rectangle. Rectangle makes a rectangle outline, and Lasso allows you to freehand a outline. You should use Lasso since it'll allow you to outline your subject better and thus get a better selection. So just outline your subject, and in Photoshop we'll try to outline what it thinks is the subject. The object selection tool works better the more color contrast a subject has from its background, but it's prone to some mistakes. If anything's missing from your subject, like this guy's hand right here, you can hold Shift and then outline the general area that missing part is. Photoshop will try to add on what it thinks is part of your subject. If anything is not supposed to be your subject, you can hold Alt or Option on a Mac and outline the general area you'd like to remove. So I'm holding Alt here, and I'm outlining this extra space it's selected along with his hand, and Photoshop will try to remove what it thinks is not part of your subject. There's also this area right here which isn't part of the subject, so I'll hold Alt, outline that area, and let Photoshop do its thing. Same thing over here. So with our selection made, we can turn this into a layer mask. And bam, a pretty decent layer mask. The selections will not always be the best, so I'd recommend using object selection for either really quick cutout mockups or for making cutouts from people in front of very simple backgrounds. Here we have the quick selection tool, which selects similar colors to where you brush over and cuts off at wherever a new color is. So for example, with this layer selected, I'm going to brush over this guy's blue jacket to select it. So you'll notice that a selection was only made for his blue jacket and not the white sky or his red shorts or his skin colored hand, because those areas contain different colors and Photoshop can tell. But if I wanted to make a selection of this entire person, then I could just brush over the other areas to include them. So his head, his hand, and his legs. You'll notice that there are some selections of places that are not the subject, like right here, or right here, or right here. To remove from your selection, hold Alt or Option and brush over an area. Also, if you want to change your brush size to more easily select or deselect something, hold Alt and right click, or Command Option on a Mac, and move your cursor to either the right to increase your brush size, or the left to decrease your brush size. So anyways, with this selection made, I'll just make a layer mask. And now we have a pretty decent cutout. Selections from the Equip Selection tool usually come out jagged and not clean. So I'd recommend only using this tool when making cutout mockups or for selecting simple colored things. Here we have the Magic Wand tool, which allows you to select areas with similar colors. Unlike the Quick Selection tool, you won't be brushing over areas. Instead, you just click once to make selections. So if I click here, it won't add on to that selection, it'll just make an entirely new selection. If you want to increase the color range that the Magic Wand selects, you can change the color tolerance here. So for example, if I set it to 1, then it'll only select these very few pixels right here that have the nearly same exact color value. But if I change it to like 50 and click in that same area, you'll notice that it selects more colors. That's because it's selecting more variations of greens. If you want to add on to your selection, hold Shift and click an area, like these dark green spots. To remove from your selection, hold Alt or Option and click an area. So, like that. The Magic Wand tool is best used for quickly selecting things of very simple colors, like this shape right here, and this shape, and that shape. Or for selecting a clear sky in a background, like this. Lastly, we have the pen tools. And before I elaborate on them, I'd like to emphasize that these are the most important tools which you'll be learning. So make sure you pay attention to this part. The next videos on making cutouts will mainly be with the normal pen tool here. So, the pen tools are tools which allow you to make paths, which are adjustable outlines made from anchor points and line segments, like this straight one and this curved one. Paths can then be turned into selections. Since they allow you to make intricate curves and angles, like as you can see from the path around this subject, paths can make very accurate selections of your subjects, which can then make very good cutouts. So, with that said, let's go over the pen tools. Here we have the normal pen tool, which allows you to make a path around your subject, then turn that path into a selection. To make a path, you left click to create these anchor points, which are connected by line segments. You can make either straight line segments by just left clicking, or curved line segments by holding the left click and dragging your cursor. Curvy line segments curve along these handles, and the anchor points they're in between. So if you want to adjust your path's curves to maybe better outline a subject or make a specific shape, you can either adjust the curve handles or move the anchor points. To adjust both sides of curve handles, hold Alt or Option, click and hold on an anchor point, and then move your cursor. To adjust one curve handle, hold Alt or Option, and drag a handle endpoint. To get rid of a curve, hold Alt or Option and click on an anchor point. And notice I just turned into straight lines. To move an anchor point, hold Control or Command and drag an anchor point. Here's a pro tip. To move an unplaced anchor point, hold the left click, then hold space and move your cursor. As an extra pro tip, if you ever lose your path, like if I made a shape here, you can find your path in the paths panels here. Just click on that and then select the work path you're working on before. Then with the pen tool, hold Control or Command, click on your path, then click on the endpoint to continue working on your path. The normal pen tool is a very useful and versatile tool. You can use it to make accurate selections, good cutouts, and unique shapes. We'll be getting in-depth with this tool in the next videos on making cutouts. Here we have the freeform pen tool, which you can use to freehand paths. It's similar to the normal lasso tool, except you're making a path and not a selection. I wouldn't recommend using this for cutouts, but maybe for creating unique shapes by clicking on the shape icon here. Here we have the curvature pen tool, which allows you to easily make curved paths. You click to place anchor points, and those anchor points will automatically connect to form a curve. You can adjust your curve by adding anchor points or by moving your anchor points. Unlike the normal pen tool, the curvature pen tool's anchor points will curve by default and not make straight line segments. To make straight lines, just double click on an anchor point and it'll convert and it'll remove the curve and make straight points instead. So as you can see here, I'm making straight lines. I'd recommend using this when you have a very curvy thing to make a cutout out of, like a hill or a road. Alright, so quick review. To make a cutout, you make a selection, then make a layer mask. There's 4 main ways to make selections: Marquee Tools for fast geometric selections, Lasso Tools for fast freehand selections, Fast Selection Tools for fast algorithm assisted selections, and Pen Tools for accurate paths that make good selections.